What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Comment Writers. We are a Kamen Rider review podcast. Today on the show, we're actually going to talk about Kamen Rider Gav, episode 16 and 17. We'll talk about that in just a second. I'm your host, Josh Meek, the Uber Geek, and I'm joined as always by my good friend, Toby Tobes. How's it going, Toby?
Josh, this is coming to you live from a recording, unlike last week when I broke shit.
Yeah, we had a whole recording evening last week.
We had We had like 2 hours, like a full 2 hours.
Full 2 hours.
We had a 90-minute Christmas podcast set up. We celebrated Boom Boom Jer right before the holidays, which is one of the greatest episodes ever. And apparently, I unplugged my microphone at some point, and when I plugged it back in, Zencastr didn't realize I wanted to use my real microphone, and it used my headset, which doesn't have a microphone. So it's basically 2 hours of Josh talking to himself.
Yeah, just me chatting away, which is so funny because I had very recently, within the last like 2 recordings that we'd done, changed up slightly how I do the recording on my end. So I actually had a duplicate backup recording of myself that didn't include Toby's voice no matter what, like even by default. So the person that didn't record last week, like there was no backup anywhere, but I had 2 copies of my own voice talking, which is just silly and dumb. This always happens, Toby. These things occur when you just like are doing a podcast for as long as we do. Things happen where mics don't work, recordings don't work, things fail, and you end up losing stuff once in a while. So not a huge deal, but it always happens. Always after a time when I think to myself like, oh, that was a good one, or like, oh, I really liked that.
Told stories and everything. So speaking of, I was supposed to start Audacity just in case as a backup, and I didn't, and I thought of it now. But like, is Audacity going to record in Zencastr and Audacity at the same time? This is going to save the episode.
I would leave. Let's not touch anything because I'm seeing waveforms in Zencastr. It all looks good on my end. Zencastr has been our old faithful for a long time. Let's just keep it going how it is. We can introduce alternative backup plans later, but I think we're okay. I think we're fine.
So, Josh, I need to tell you a story about what could possibly be the wildest marketing I've ever heard or seen for something.
Okay.
And I want you to sound this out with me. I want you to hear the story, and then you can chime in when you feel like it.
Okay.
So the week before Christmas, it was brought to my attention by my caretaker that there's a movie called Homestead that was coming out. It's out now in theaters.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So I was told like, hey, they're doing advertising on Instagram. They have a giveaway where you can win Homestead stuff from the movie for real life. And if you buy tickets during the pre-sale spread, you get extra entries into this contest. So I looked up what the movie was about. And it's basically like an end of the world kind of thing. We're like, oh, they dropped the nukes on us. How are people going to be able to survive? Like The Last of Us, but like possible military war stuff and not so much cordyceps zombies. So I watched the little sales pitch from the ad for the entries was like the 2 of the actors from the movie. And they're like, you could win the ATV, your own greenhouse, bug out bags, blah, blah, blah. And they had like 50 different homesteady kind of things. Like homestead being like a safe place to go live, all farms set up, everything's taken care of kind of deal. So I looked up the movie that day and it says like, blah, 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 military Green Beret has to survive in this new world. And there's also a thing that says like religious overtones or like some sort of weird religious wording. And I was like, why are we going to go see a religious movie? And it was like, no, it's about the Homestead. Watch the trailer. The trailer looks good. It's like, oh, they dropped the bomb. How are we going to survive? People are breaking the thing. So I was like, no big deal. We'll go to the movie, watch the movie. It's a pretty decent film about like, hey, they dropped nukes on the West Coast. California lost power. Everyone, basically there's like this one homestead in the Rockies where all these different families end up going to because they're tied to the guy that owns the house, blah, blah, blah. No big deal. So decent movie about people working together, like the military vibe versus the everyone's our friend vibe kind of stuff. Get about halfway through the movie, and all of a sudden, the homestead owner guy is like, yeah, they had to shoot somebody that was coming in on our property. And the guy's wife freaks out, and she's like, we are religious people. God would never do this. Jesus would take care of people. This is ridiculous. And she drops like a 2-minute religious dissertation on like this is not what my Lord would do.
Oh
And I was
my.
like, wow, not only are we hitting the religious part, we're going hard with it. So movie goes on. Um, I'm going to spoil the movie because it's not really that big of a deal.
Yeah, no,
And
it
then
seems like a
we'll get
bad movie. Yeah, go ahead and
yes,
fully
and let's
spoil
get
it.
to the end
Yeah.
of this. So at one point, like the guy whose homestead it was, who has a religious wife, ends up getting shot before he gets shot, and like he lives. Of course, he lives. But his wife was like, "Hey, all of our neighbors are outside. We have them locked out of the gate." She's like, "We should be feeding them too." And he was like, "We don't have enough people for all. We don't have enough food for all of our people." And she's like, "That is not how we were raised." She was like, "You can save people with bread and wine and blah 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 blah." And it's another crazy religious thing. So at some point, she figures out like, well, our wheat is going bad, but if we bake loaves of bread for everybody, we'll have more than enough bread. And if we bake bread in the greenhouse, it'll keep the greenhouse warm to help plants grow, blah, blah, blah. This whole big thing about like, hey, we can save our neighbors with bread, much like the J Man himself was claimed to have done.
The
The
J
the
Man.
the J Man. So the guy gets shot. He's in the hospital for 30 days. He wakes up and he comes up. He's like, "How's the house?" And she goes, "Well, get this." And does like this magical overtone of like, once we figure out how the bread worked, we did this, and everyone's living in harmony. And like Jesus gave bread to everybody, so are we. And this is the life I believe in.
Ugh.
So they go through the whole thing, and I'm like, fine, this is whatever. It was a decent movie. Like the ending is, well, if people actually work together, like even if the world goes to shit, we can still survive. All this is fine. But throughout the movie, there's these little pieces of like plot that are dropped that are literally never addressed again. Much like the movie we made fun of last week that you
Yeah.
said you saw,
Yeah, oh my god, yes.
which made me think that. So they're dropping these little things. And the one crazy one they drop in the beginning was the military family has an adopted daughter. When the dad is watching the TV in the beginning of the film footage of like the nuke going off, the mushroom cloud, whatever, he looks at his daughter's drawing, and it's literally the nuclear cloud before the bomb was dropped. So he holds it up to the TV and like this, oh my god, she's seeing things vibe. They mentioned that one time about halfway through the movie once, him and his wife say like, well, you know, she had problems growing up. You know, we can't fix what happened before now.
She's
And
a
they give each
prophet.
other they give each other a look, and it's never talked about it again. So there's this daughter that has magic powers that's never really addressed at all whatsoever.
Christ.
But exactly.
Quite
But
literally,
like
yeah.
but like so they drop that and like nothing happens. So the whole movie goes through. The ending comes up. They doing this nice little fade out. The screen says the end, big bold letters right in the middle. I'm like, okay, decent flick, no big deal, something to do Christmas, fun thing. And then it goes dun dun dun, and then under the end it says is just the beginning, and then if we fade the credits, and I was like, so I was like, holy shit, would they have a sequel made already? Like this is pretty impressive. So credits roll for a little bit. Onto the screen pops the main actor, and he's like, I just want to say hello to everybody. Christmas times are a hard time for some people, but what you can do, and in the spirit of Christmas, is if you scan this QR code on the screen right now, and they drop a QR code on the movie screen, and he's still in like his full military getup, but
Oh
talking as
my
the person
oh
in
my
the actor's
god.
clothes. He goes, if you scan the QR code, you can pay it forward. You can buy tickets for someone else to come see the movie because Christmas is hard for people. Finances are tough, blah, blah, blah. And that's fine. Like, that's actually a nice moral thing. It was a religious-ish movie. That's cool. And he goes, but there's so many story plots that weren't talked about yet. And that's why if you scan this code and pay ahead for somebody else, you can get exclusive access to the first 2 episodes of Homestead the TV show right on angelapp.com. And I was like,
Oh
wait,
my
what?
god.
And I thought about it, and they had, after the movie ended, they had a trailer for what seemed like a second movie. And like you see like more military fighting, the daughter magic powers acting up more, and everything else. And they're like, but it's Homestead, the TV show. And I'm like, I'm looking at the screen. I'm like, are we really doing this? I was like, you have to be fucking kidding me. So I'm staring at the screen, dumbfounded. I happen to turn around, and there's like 30 people still in the theater staring down at their phones, and I see them typing. And I'm like,
They're doing
holy
it.
shit, they hooked all these people with this. So I thought about it. I'm like, no, we're going home. Well, I'll reflect upon this later. So I get home. I look on the production company's website, and I think they're just angel.com.
Angel. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I know something kind of about this,
Okay.
but, yeah,
Yeah. So
I have a weird side story when you're finished with this
okay.
about this.
So I was like, I'm looking. So I looked and like, yeah, I've on Angel's website on the Angel specific TV app. There was 2 or 3 episodes of Homestead the TV show already made and already on the website. And I was like, this is really, really off putting to me. Like on the like it just something about it was like this is the greatest marketing campaign in the history of the world.
Yep.
Where they had a giveaway before the movie came out for you to go watch the movie, for you to buy movie tickets for somebody else, for you to get free access to watch their TV show on their paid app. So I was looking at it and I was like, well, how much is the app? Is it free at least? And the app is like $12 a month.
Oh
But they word it
gosh.
as join the guild because the guild gets you into like early movie screenings, some other like community driven stuff. And the app goes up to like $50 a month where you get extra perks and everything else. So I was like, this is really gross and really weird. But I looked through the website and Angel specifically, I'm not going to say they're a religious production company, but
They
on
are.
their,
They are.
it, I'll call it close because their mission statement from the founder is there's so much bad shit that always goes on in the world. And there's so many bad stories that have unhappy endings. They're like, their whole vibe is they are community funded and driven or assisted, whatever. And they just want to put out like wholesome, good content with a feel good story or like good meaning. And then I looked at it and I thought about it and I was like, I can kind of respect this better because it seems like that's what they want to do. And like that's truly what the movie was and everything else. But the way it was all presented to me was just like the wildest thing ever. And especially because like the movie had no end, like the movie wrapped up nothing. So you would watch the movie and then have the sales pitch from the actor in his actor costume of, hey, sign up for our app too and watch the rest of the story. And that was the part thing that pissed me off the most.
Yeah. So this Angel company, they're the same it's the same people that did the Sound of Freedom movie. Do you remember anything about that movie when it came out?
No, I'm
Okay.
not good at keeping up with movies, to be
So
honest with you.
this one, so it came out in like 2023. It's Jim Caviezel.
Uh,
Um
Jesus himself.
Jesus Jim Caviezel, exactly. Um that guy went super like right-wing MAGA crazy at some point.
Apparently, so
Um
before you finish your thing, so
uh
I watched Person of Interest was the TV show he was on before Passion of the Christ, I think.
okay, yeah,
And
yeah.
he's a very dry
Yep.
sense of humor, like James Bond kind of guy. And like he's very slick. But when I looked into the show afterwards, everyone was basically like, yeah, Jim's kind of a piece of shit and would talk down to all the women and be rude to everybody. And that's
Yeah.
kind of why like the show ended because he was just like an actual asshole.
Yep, exactly. So, I don't even know where to begin on this stuff. So, anyway, they made this movie called The Sound of Freedom. And same thing that you're saying there, where it's like not necessarily it's a full-on religious movie, but it has these like religious overtones to it. But The Sound of Freedom was especially egregious because, well, one, they did the pay it forward thing for The Sound of Freedom as well. But this was before they had like clearly appified it like they have now for this movie. So their part of their marketing campaign was exactly that of just like, oh, our message in this movie is so important. We need to get the word out to people who can't afford to come see the movie. So you should buy extra tickets or buy tickets to the next showing so other people can go see it. So the dummies who would go see this movie and like they would get won over by that message would just like buy tickets for the next showing. So then when people would come so then it became this weird thing where people would come to the theater to try to see this movie, would try to buy tickets. The theater would look like it was sold out, but then they would like peek in the theater and it'd be empty. So then it became this like conspiracy theory of like, hey, like the man doesn't want us to see this movie. They're trying to keep this message from being disseminated, like
I
trying to
think I
keep us
remember that
down.
specific thing now. Now that you mentioned that part, I vaguely
Um,
remember some sort of drama about some sort of movie where they're like, there's no tickets, but no one's here, blah, 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 or something weird.
Yeah. So, but it was all like that. It was like people paying it forward, but not actually giving the tickets away, just sort of buying empty seats. Is my understanding of it. But they did the same thing of like Jim Caviezel comes on after the movie and like does his like big spiel and stuff about paying it forward, just like this one that as you're describing. But the Sound of Freedom was also really bad because it was also, like, kinda secretly a QAnon movie.
Oh, Jesus.
Because so that movie is about, it's about, like, a real life guy, and, like, it's mostly not accurate, I think, about his life, it seems like, but he, like, did this, like, Operation Underground Railroad thing where he, like, tried to save children from sex traffickers, and I guess there's maybe some things where he's, like, clearly he's, embellishing the things
Okay.
that he did potentially. And then that all got tied up in QAnon at the time because that was like a good in for the QAnon people because like they would start with like, well, clearly you're against child sex trafficking. Like, oh yeah, obviously. But then they'd be like, okay, so then like they'd build on top of that, right? It's like, oh, you're against child sex trafficking, but then also you're against like the secret cabal, right? Like, wait, hang on. You're kind of adding some things together here that don't need to be added together. So there's a big like section on the Wikipedia page for Sound of Freedom that I just pulled up that is connections to QAnon conspiracy theories. So we don't need to like dive into them, but like there are multiple things that connect this movie to QAnon in kind of like weird, gross ways.
Okay.
Um, so that was crazy. I knew about that movie from all that, and then I didn't know Homestead was coming out, and I didn't know Homestead was the same group, but I went to my parents for Christmas. And while I was there, we went after Christmas to their house. On Christmas Day, they went to the movies, which is a little weird for them, but they did. And I was like, "Oh, what'd you see?" And they're like, "Oh, this movie Homestead." I was like, "Oh, cool. What was that about?" So I asked them what that was about, and I don't know anything about it. And their description of it to me made it sound like made it sound like it was like almost like um I don't know, like wealthy worshiping or like rich person worshiping because it was like, oh, like this one person has this like crazy homestead and like invites everyone in. Like they were presenting it as like almost like the person who runs the homestead was like this Jesus like figure even was like their takeaway. So then yes,
So
in looking it up afterwards, I'm like, oh, it's like it's the same company. It's just the Sound of Freedom 2, basically.
yes, and so like it wasn't so much that the owner was, but his wife was definitely the churchy Jesus like figure of this is the right answer, this is the right way.
That's
And
crazy.
like I want to clarify that like for real, 60 minutes of the movie went by and it was literally just like a soft apocalypse drama. Like there was no I remembered the trailer thing of like, hey, in the words it says it's religious tones. And I was like, I see none of this so far until like the last 30 minutes where they get so heavy-handed and they do like he this isn't the way he would help us, and they drop where the bread thing is like a huge obvious like one of the big Christian things is like, oh, water in the wine, he made bread out of nothing and everything else. So like it was so weird that it was almost nothing about religion until it was
Yeah.
all about religion, and it's like
It's a
out of nowhere like a bomb, like just like
yeah.
dropped like
It's almost like Trojan horsing it in.
yeah.
Like and like I mean, I have nothing against people having religious views and obviously like believing things. That's all perfectly fine. But all of this has all seemed super scummy from back when Sound of Freedom came out. Like the whole like pay it forward thing seemed gross then, and now kind of seems even grosser with the app and like getting people like locked into a monthly fee out
It was
of
weird.
like
It's weird.
altruism. It's just so strange. But this is clearly working for them. Like this weird whatever channels they're marketing to is catching my parents because they saw Sound of Freedom. Now they're seeing this movie. So like whatever whatever boomer Facebook they're advertising on, they're hitting.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Uh, yeah, we'll have to do a deep investigative dive into Angel Studios at some point apparently because it keeps coming up in my life.
And
Also, they got Angel.com apparently.
yeah, that's pretty impressive.
That
And
is kind of impressive.
the other day I was looking through all the other things they put out, and they have a special channel or like a film category thing that's called Dry Bar Comedy. So after I knew all the religious stuff, I laughed. I was like, of course they're not
Yeah.
drinking. And I was
Yeah.
like, I was looking about it. I was like, this can't be funny. Like, I feel like if it's just gonna be like, or maybe for my sensibilities of humor, I feel like if we're gonna be like do like the whole this is a nice religious themed comedy troupe, I feel like they're just gonna do like the nice polite jokes. I know it's not gonna be for me, but I was really tempted because there's like 140 episodes of this, and I could if I can power through them for $12 in 1 month, I could do like the best deep dive of all time.
uh, I scrolled long enough that I actually saw someone. I think maybe it's literally Hitler on their website. I don't know. No, pastor, spy, assassin, Bonhoeffer. I don't know who that is. Yeah, if you want to take one for the team, and you can tell us all about what you find in the Angel Studios backlog. I did also scroll on the website long enough to see they apparently have at least one animated show. Two. They have two different animated shows.
And
So
it's
there's
funny. So
that.
the like when the kids were watching TV, or the one guy was watching TV, they had a cartoon on, and it looked like Adventure Time or something, one of those kind of shows. And I was like, oh, it's a fun crossover, no big deal. And then for whatever reason, the cartoon stuck with me. And the one cartoon that's on their website is literally the cartoon that's playing in the movie.
Of
So that's
course
good
it is.
that's yeah, like it made sense. And I was like, that's
Yeah.
good cross marketing. Like they have everything covered. It's crazy.
Is it the Tuttle twins? That one?
It might
Because
be.
that it's that the description there is a grandma with a time traveling wheelchair takes her
Yes.
twin grandkids on hilarious adventures to learn about freedom and economics.
There you go. That's what it was.
Oh God, cool. In the first episode, she takes her children to France and the Old West.
There you go.
This is all it's all crazy. Yeah. You know, it's kind of like, again, I have nothing against people and whatever beliefs they want to hold as long as they don't hurt other people, but this is sort of like uh Christian rock music where it's like it doesn't make like Christianity better. It just makes rock worse, you know? This isn't improving your movies, just making the movies worse. I don't know. Uh on the topic of dry bar comedy, I heard someone the other day was talking about a comedian, and the selling point was like, oh, like he's a clean comedian. I like a good clean comedian. I was thinking, like, at what age do you get to that point where that's like your number one selling point for like a comedian, is like the cleanliness is like the thing I'm looking for. I haven't quite hit that yet. It's not
I don't know
really.
if I would ever I don't know if I would ever like that.
I know. It just like, and again, I'm not even going in that hard on like I need it to be super crass or I don't love it. But just like when cleanliness is the main selling point, my head just reads that as not funny. That's code for not funny. And yeah, I can't not conflate those two things. But anywho, Angel Studios, yeah, I'm excited to hear more about this. I want to know more. Oh, they've trademarked Pay It Forward, it looks like.
That's pretty slick. That's
Yeah.
a good one. Even if they do nothing else with it, that's pretty clutch to have.
This is yeah. This is a whole rabbit hole we could go down forever. But let's go down a different rabbit hole instead, Toby. Let's go down the rabbit hole of Common Writer Gav episode 16. Uh
Let's do a light dive. The
a
rabbit's
light
kind of like
dive.
poking out the top because anything funny and deep I said last week, I kind of forget. I still have my notes at least, but
Me too. Yeah, I didn't even really take extensive notes, because I watched the show, I think, like right before. But yeah, we talked about it in depth. We had a lot of important, you should all assume, really, really revelatory, intelligent things to say about the show. So we're just gonna not repeat any of those this time. Just assume that we had them, and we're gonna quickly cover what happened in Gav episode 16. So this was the episode. I think this episode is important to touch on because we lay the groundwork for, I think, what we'll see in the new year, and we might be talking about that here in a few minutes after we after we watch and discuss episode 17. But we're getting another writer. It's clear here. We get to see the development of a new driver, which is
put it
pudding based.
yeah, the pudding cup slide right in the gochizo hole.
Uh-huh. And it seems like Laga 9, our new Granute, is going to be the the holder of that driver is going to be the new rider. So we talked about it, I think, before. I love the look of the driver. I think it's cool. The whole pudding aspect of it is going to be funny. I'm really excited to see how that goes. But I like the big kind of handle on the side, and I like the colors and stuff. But Toby, Lock 9 maybe has some secrets about him that we'll find out.
Yeah, he has the best secrets because one of the main hooks or arcs of the episode is a lot of the Shoma and well, can people be good guys again once they lie to me and tell me they're not going to be evil Grenoots anymore and they do things. And the uncle is like, well, once they're hooked on the dark candy, you literally can't be unhooked ever again. So after we see Logan 9 take over a whole movie theater, so he upped his mass takeover game. They give him his dark candy for a job well done, and he just kind of throws it to the side. And then later down the road, he makes a comment of like, "Well, they definitely trust me now. I'm getting closer," or like something along those lines, where
Yeah.
he words it in a way where you're like, "Okay, so we know he's not hooked on the dark confection, so he still has his own thought process and theories." And from 2 episodes ago, he still heavily alludes to, "I'm more of a secret underground agent that's possibly against the Stomach family, more so than like the Stomach family's top recruit, even though he worked his way up their checklist of this guy's a freaking hero, we need him."
Yeah. It's certainly interesting. We talked about, in the lost recordings, that it's really cool that they've shown us enough people receiving their dark confections up to this point that we know sort of how intense the addiction is, because everyone gets it and instantly like starts chomping down on it the second they get it, right? Like, oh, I got to get my fix. So the fact that he didn't, even if he hadn't said anything, would have told us like, oh, like clearly there's something up with this guy because he just throws it to the side. So really, really good storytelling on their part for that, for sure. But then yes, alluding to like, oh, clearly I'm in their favor. I just have to keep working on earning their trust. Is like, okay, yeah, you've got something going on. But
He's a crafty boy.
he is, but he still is capturing a bunch of humans and giving them over to the Grenoots. Like he's still killing people. So it'll be interesting to see like where he falls in terms of his allegiances and like what his motivations are, because he's not like squeaky clean trying to save humans lying about collecting his dark confections. He's doing a really good job at being an evil murderer, but clearly maybe not 100% in service of the Stomach family after all. So I'm really excited to learn more about him going forward.
Yeah, like that's definitely gonna give, like, I guess vibes probably not the right word, but a good counter to the like Shoma's big in-depth problem right now is, well, can people be good again once they start doing this stuff? So he still assumes the best of everybody. We know uh Hanto is very like, nope, once you're a piece of shit, you're always a piece of shit. I'm not gonna help you, I'm not gonna back you, I want you all dead. And now we have a third guy who possibly inevitably will be a hero of sorts, but he will have the backstory and the dark past of like, yeah, you might be on our side or you might be offering us help, but you definitely killed like 150, 200 people so far.
Yeah. Like, yeah, clearly you have some bad things that you've done. If that does turn around. And then of course the other big plot point that happens in this episode is first Honto gets captured by our tricky Granoot friend that we've had featured in the last few episodes.
Yeah,
He
like
gets
the
tied up.
carryover ending from last week,
Yep.
or I guess it would be 2 weeks ago, but from the episode before, the carryover of he got his ass kicked because he wasn't ready. He got captured and taken to a secret location kind of deal.
And then later, Shoma lets himself get captured, basically to just figure out where Honto is so he can rescue Honto. So we end up with two tied up boys in the Granoot headquarters. And there's some interesting stuff that happens here. Uh, Honto realizes that he might be able to finagle his way into being taken into the Granoot world. So he really, really tries to make that happen. It doesn't. they they end up not caring that they have Honto captured because, well, it's not Shoma, and that's who
Yeah,
really they were
basically.
looking for. But he still thinks he can maybe make something happen, or he can learn more about the Granoots. So even though Hanto breaks himself free early on in being captured, he stays there, kind of undercover, in order to keep the investigative journalism going. And then, of course, Shoma never needed to get captured, but did it just to find Hanto. So I really love that they kind of both were sort of doing the same thing of like pretending to be captive, um, more or less for each other.
They were
uh,
as we wrapped up the story to find out, they were each other's gift of the Magi, where
yeah,
both their gifts to each other was, I want to make sure that my friend survives and is safe down the road. So my best opportunity is just to pretend I'm garbage and get captured and just take over.
yep, exactly. And of course, the we get a lot more in this episode of Hanto restating his opinion that all Granoots are trash and all Granoots must die, which obviously doesn't quite sit well with Shoma, because he's a Granoot and he's currently wrestling with the idea that Granoots can turn a new leaf and can decide to stop doing dark treats, maybe. And everything in his world is challenging that as a belief, right? When he talks to Al Dente, and now the reality basically of what he's seeing in the world. So I like what they're doing with that. I love the whole, like, continuing to have these two dance around each other and have both like conjoined goals, but also like diametrically opposed viewpoints at the same time. It's very cool. Hanto, in wanting to sneak into the Granute world at one point, like it seems like he's gonna be able to do it, or like he's really trying hard to figure out how to do it. And Shoma's being like, "Ooh, we should probably like do some more fact finding first. We're not ready for that yet, Chief. Let's all calm down."
Yeah, there's still a lot of concern of like the will they won't they of when does Shoma tell Hanto that he's a Granute, or does Hanto just find out, or how that fight reveal happens. They're still like right on the cusp of it in a way that works still. Like it still doesn't feel like out of place, or it's not overly too stretched out yet, but they're really just right on the cusp of like someone needs to find out and someone's going to find out real soon.
Yeah, I think we are rapidly approaching that, but they've been just doing such a masterful job at letting them build a relationship and letting them gain more information about each other, um, without it feeling like goofy and forced that they haven't learned all the secrets yet. And I think that they're doing a really good job with the story on that front. And then, of course, in being friends, we finally got the Honto form, the Valen form that was teased last time, with the new present Gochizo. We get to see the Bushel form of Valen, so he gets to be his full Yule log goodness, I guess. Which he looks pretty good. Looks pretty similar to when we saw Gav kind of rock the Yule log. And of course, it's Christmas, Toby. So we have to end the episode with a Christmas celebration. And in the lost recording, we talked a bit about they're eating some fried chicken, and that is a Japanese Christmas tradition. We learned
The
in
KFC,
that,
KFC
yeah.
specifically.
Yep. Yeah. So KFC really did a marketing push. I think what we said back in like the 70s and 80s, and made it so that, yeah, people in Japan try to get KFC at Christmas time, and they have to like order it 6 weeks in advance, and there's like a 2-hour wait sometimes at the restaurants, and it's this like big coveted traditional thing, like we would have, turkey or whatever. It's like you got to get your KFC, which is amazing. It's one of the most Japanese things that I could imagine. So yes, if you're watching Gavin, you're wondering why they're so into their strange Christmas food. That's part of where that comes from. Any other thoughts about episode 16 here, Toby?
No, I think the setup here is wonderful for the will they won't they of when Shoma's Dark Secret comes out. Login 9 as the secret possible hero, possible villain, definitely going to be a rider is a good setup. And I don't remember much else of what I said, so that's all I have right now.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting continuation forward, I think, in the series. So we're gonna stop here for episode 16. We're gonna watch episode 17, and then we'll be right back with discussion on that. So be with you back in just a second. All right, and we're back. We've watched episode 17 now of Gav here for this double header. And Toby, this was a big one. This was quite the debut, we'll say. The big headline, of course, we get a new common writer.
Mr. J's little puddin' pop is finally here.
Indeed. But I do think this is an episode that maybe warrants breaking it down like a little bit in order because things kind of build as the episode goes on. So I would be ashamed if we didn't talk about the mochi pounding event at the very beginning of the episode.
That was amazing to me just because there's always people always post videos on like Instagram or TikTok or any of those things of the people that are extremely good at the high speed mochi pounding. Where like there's the hand like goes in for half a second and the hammer's right behind it or the mallet over and over and over.
Uh-huh.
Those videos always intrigued the shit out of me. So when I saw the episode open with the mochi pounding, I was like, "Oh my god, this is fantastic!" Just for that little goofy reference in my brain of people that are very good at this are very good at this.
Yeah, for sure. Shoma and Sachika were not quite as good at it, but they were having a good time doing it,
They
and
they
it
were they
was
were best
adorable.
buds in it up.
They were. I think it's cute when they go do like community things like this, like where it's just like clearly it's like set up to be like, oh, it's just you and your local neighbors just pounding some mochi. Just what a cool little festival you've got going on here.
I think it's nice that like most of these episode things are geared as taking my alien puppy to the new life experience today, and we'll see how he reacts in the store.
Dude, it really is that. That is the vibe of the show, and I love it.
And I
But
guess like I am disappointed that mochi isn't good enough to pop out a good chizo.
that was the first thing I had written down to talk to you about. Why mochi is a treat. I think it's firmly in the treat category. We should have gotten a mochi gochizo.
So the only thing I can think of is because it's bean paste, right?
I think
Like
so.
mochi
Yeah,
like mochi itself is red bean paste, I think, or
I think
something like
that's
that.
right. Yeah, I'll
I
Google it.
maybe because it's not actually a sugar thing and it's beans that he cannot go chizo vegetables.
We are wrong. Mochi is a Japanese rice cake made of mochigome, a short grained uh, rice, a short grained and a couple of weird words, rice, and sometimes other ingredients such as water, sugar, and cornstarch.
What the hell's
What are we thinking of?
I
Oh
guess
wait, hang
there's
on,
sweet
hang
bean
on.
paste, that's also a thing.
Yeah, the cherry blossom sakura is a symbol of Japan. Sakura mochi is a pink-colored mochi surrounding sweet red bean paste and wrapped in an edible. So sometimes bean paste is used in conjunction with mochi.
Maybe that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I was with you though. I was pretty sure it was a bean paste, but no, it's
Well, then
it's
what the
a
fuck? Why isn't there a well, I guess because it's steamed rice.
yeah, it's
Steamed
steamed rice.
rice. Yeah. That seems silly. I think mochi should be gochizo, I guess because we were getting the Common Rider pudding pop today. I guess that's why we didn't have to do two brand new ones, but
Yeah, I guess
missed
so.
opportunity.
I didn't realize that now that I'm on the mochi Wikipedia page, it makes sense now. I didn't realize that mochi was a traditional Japanese New Year food. So it makes
No,
sense why
so they're
they
still right on
had,
brand. They're still right on brand with the timeline of
yeah,
eh,
which is cool. I like that. That's neat. That's why they were having their mochi pounding event because it was the New Year. While we're at this mochi pounding event, Toby, we overhear some women talking about a missing kid.
some
Uh,
gossipy old ladies.
yeah, Sachika inserts herself and says because she knows the kid or knows of the kid, and she's like, "Oh, what's going on?" And, so we find out that yeah, like oh, it's a polite kid that went to school one day, never came home.
It's a sweet, nice child.
Hmm. Indeed. And then we find out, of course, that that kid and maybe other kids, because we see a bunch of them, was taken by a kind of a bird granute, I guess. And Nielv, the kind of like stomach scientist guy, kind of watches the bird granute turn in the the presses, get his dark confection, and he's very happy because he's like, oh, like this Granut's doing a great job picking up all these kids, and that means that Red Gav's gonna notice soon. So I'll be able to try out my new invention. Of course, we know from last time that he had developed a driver.
I was
Uh,
excited that like they hinted towards like, could it be pudding time? We'll see. Because just because like with the way the show works a lot, even when it seems like today is the day, it's not always the day. So it felt good that like we got like the instant payoff basically.
yep.
He was like, "It's definitely time today, guys." And then later we got to see the grand guy himself.
Yeah, it's nice they didn't like string that along for too long. It was sort of like, hey, there's a driver here. I wonder if we'll use it. And then the next episode, it's like definitely using it. Yeah, that's always good. Shoma and Hanto are kind of comparing notes back at their headquarters, and the insane thing. So Hanto um, is talking to Shoma about like the individual kid disappearances, kind of that have been happening, but then he realizes that Shoma doesn't know about the entire roomfuls of people that have been disappearing because of what Log 9 is doing, which blows my mind that you can have like at this point what an entire courtroom of people and an entire movie theater's worth of people just disappear in a single city, and that isn't like that's not like a 9/11 level catastrophe, you know?
Well, I mean, like it seemed like the adults knew about it. It just seems like as we went on, it seemed like other people were like, "Oh, was your friend in the movie theater that day?" And they'd be like, "No, no, he wasn't there, but he was off
That's
doing his
true.
own thing." That was kind of scary that people keep disappearing now.
That
So it
was
really
true.
just seems like Shoma lives in his own bubble and he's not up to date with the news, and that's the only reason why he didn't know. More
That's fair.
so
They
than yeah.
Yeah, they did address it a couple times where people were mentioning it kind of casually. It feels like such a crazy thing. Like I'm imagining if that happened in the real world right now. People wouldn't let their kids out. Like it would be insane. Like I feel like we'd have to like it'd have to be like martial law or something. I don't know. It just and I might be completely overselling like the governmental response to something like this, but it feels like if in two separate occasions within like days of each other, huge groups of people all together had just disappeared, it would be insane. Like everything, it would be like 24/7 news cycle, like everything locked down, kids can't leave the house. I
I
don't know.
feel like along that line, if that was happening here, there would be so many TikTokers like going outside the building or like quote unquote ghost hunting or like
Oh yeah.
posting their own, oh my god, a portal opened in the movie theater, let's talk about it, let's do this, we're gonna go find clues, oh my god, what's on the floor here. Like it'd be both the scariest thing ever and like extra overblown by social media to make it into like a gimmick for the next 2 weeks.
That's true. That's true. And like I could understand what we've had up to this point where it's like singular disappearances. Like it probably would take a lot of those for people to start recognizing patterns, right? Like, oh, a random kid disappeared here and like a random loner disappeared here and like, on a city scale, it's probably pretty hard to like string those together and realize that it's like something's happening. But when you start getting into an entire courtroom, an entire cinema, and then with the one we see today, an entire classroom of elderly people.
That was the best one. That's the real turning point, especially because they went for basically to like take a don't buy gift cards to Walmart
Yes,
course, basically. So like going for them specifically was pretty good, just for like from a humor standpoint alone.
it was. Yeah, I love that they had that class. Like, I feel like I know some old people who should get sent to a class like that. No, it turns out the Prince of Nigeria didn't send you an email directly. Yeah,
There's not three
don't
million
respond.
dollar. There's not 3 million yen out there for you. Don't give them 10,000 first.
Exactly. But we do see Laganine eat those elderly people, and he kind of like has an interesting reaction to it. At one point, he's like, "How many more of these am I gonna have to do?" Like, ugh, here we go.
And like we can vague. I'm gonna vaguely jump ahead with that through line at least.
Mhm.
His current attitude of anything he does is really just basically like I don't give a fuck about this. Why I'm even bothering?
Yeah.
And he's such he's such like an Eeyore about it. We just kind of mopes around, and like his catchphrase really seems to be like "you suck" or "this sucks" or like "everything sucks."
Yeah.
And I really appreciate the fact that like I guess his pure vibe is just depression or like depressed evil guy, I guess, who just is doing things to do them but doesn't really give a shit about it.
I'm gonna so I this was one of the weeks where I downloaded both translations. And I wanted to look at the other one because I watched like one and a half basically of them. Because I watched through the first one where yeah, they translate the thing he says as you suck each time. And then the other one, at least the first time he says it, they translate it as him just going like, ugh, like making a disgusted noise.
Just as good.
Um, so I was gonna see if he carried that through here, and see if when he says it later, it also is more of a ugh. Let me see if I can find it real quick. But yeah, he definitely has like an Eeyore depression vibe to him for sure. Um, and I like that. I liked when he meets the nail guy next, and that's where he like strikes the deal and gets the driver and kind of all that business. But there's a point in that where basically he first encounters Nielv and he like kind of does the like, oh hello, like I've been working really hard and kind of puts on that air. And then he realizes that Nielv is kind of in business for himself, so he can kind of like let his guard down a little bit. And then Nielv tells him like, "Yeah, just be yourself around me. It's fine." And then he like, "Yeah, I'm a real laid back guy." And he like lays on the couch.
Yeah, it's just like, whatever, fine, let's just talk, I guess.
That was really good. I liked that a lot.
Yeah, especially once it was the let's put the false pretenses down. I know you're not really trying to impress my dad or whatever that relation would be. But just like when he's and like the flop, the dead flop on the couch or the boxes. I'm just like, all right, man, talk, whatever. Let's do
Yeah.
this. It's just so good. And that the whole episode, anytime you really talked or communicated with people, is really just that same vibe of just why am I bothering? Why am I doing this? Who really gives a shit? Whatever.
Yeah, totally. It's like, yeah, can't really be, but like he has a mission, but like you can tell it's just like, yeah, I don't know, whatever. Like he has the vibe of someone who's really good at something, but knows that they are, and like because they're so good at it, it's boring for them, right? Like it's like someone who's like really good at a video game or a sport playing someone who's brand new at it. It's just like, yeah, I'm gonna win, but like, ugh, why bother?
To use a slight anime reference, I know. I at least watched some of One Punch Man, and that's basically the whole vibe of where he's just like, "Oh, I wanted to fight you, but I punched you and you exploded, and whatever. I'm going back to my misery now. I want some excitement in my life. What the hell is this?"
In this meeting with Nielv, we get I guess the confirmation here that for sure Laganine is after something more than just dark confections, because they kind of have their little conversation where uh if first it's like, hey, would you like a job that's just secret that only I know about? And he goes, and then I'd be betraying the your brother, like I don't know, which if I don't know if that would benefit me. So they kind of talk about it a bit more, and then to entice him, um, we say like, "Oh, you can have all the dark confections you want, or if there's something else," and then that's the thing that like perks him up. You're like, "All right,
Or
yeah, I will take something else. Why, thank you." So that, yeah, for sure, like confirmation that he's after something else, which was cool. I liked that. And then yeah, he picks up the little driver, and yeah, I just found the spot in the actual other episode. They're translating his "you suck" as just like grunts, basically. Yeah, which is just as good. But I'm really curious what the more accurate translation is
but you
there.
know, like what the actual yeah.
Yeah, because I think both really work in the character, but uh, it's interesting. He's really fun. Uh, After this, he goes and visits the Granute, um, which I thought was interesting. So we get to see him like clearly going to strike a deal, but he gets like he poses as a regular person, like the Granute starts to eat him, And then he just is like, "Oh, so that's how you do it," while he's wrapped in a
Yeah,
tongue.
he's like, "This is kind of slow and useless, but I guess if this works, go for it."
Yeah, if this gets it done for you, that's fine. And then it's kind of at the same time that that's happening. Hanto goes and visits the theater and learns about, of course, the disappearances at the theater, but also a worker who seemingly like unrelated has disappeared. And he and Shoma then compare notes, and basically all the people that they know have disappeared have all been polite.
They're s- they were all sweet and nice people. That was at
Uh,
least the Geo subs version. Was
yeah.
they were all sweet, nice people, because that, of course, made me type out my concerns before it went off. Since Sachiko was off doing her own investigation as well, and it was setting up for she's going to get kidnapped or eaten. I immediately had a reaction on the inside of like if Sachika actually gets kidnapped or grenaded or compressed or whatever you want to call it. I might have actually had a meltdown today. I might have actually like got a little irritated, a little pissed, but luckily, because as Shoma said, she's also a very sweet and nice person, or sweet and
hmm
caring, whatever the proper phrase was, to get eaten this week.
They did a great job at the buildup of that, and then letting you come to that conclusion, sort of as the viewer at the same time. That like Shoma does, of just like they're putting it together like, oh, everyone is like sweet and kind, and then it's like, then you realize like, oh, obviously Shoma's gonna think of Sachika, and she's the sweetest, kindest person in his life. Then he does, and then of course it happens right afterwards, which oh, I thought was it was a nice build up to that moment. And then yes, of course, her attempting to get grenaded. We see a cute woman kind of in a white dress. Her scarf flies away, and Sachika, being the kind person that she is, chases after the scarf, which kind of takes her to a secluded portion of the street. And clearly that's what the woman does is uses the scarf to kind of lure people away, and then, you know, grenades them, eats them when she has them alone. And Shoma shows up basically just in time, before the woman can pull the tongue out.
it
Now,
is it is a different vibe. It feels a little different
yeah,
at least as a fine gentleman as myself, when the women start trying to pull their shirts up versus the guys, it just feels like a different kind of show at that point. So it's a little weird.
I got really excited. This sounds bad, I guess, if I say excited. I was really interested when I realized that she was the grenade because I was like, is she gonna pull the shirt up? Like, are they gonna do that? And they do. And it's the she has the belly stomach just like the others do. I don't know why I thought she wouldn't, but it felt like a weird like, are they gonna do that? I'm like, no, they do. Yeah. I thought that her approach was like not the greatest because it's like most of the grenades try to catch people when they're really happy. And like I don't know if like chasing down someone's scarf makes someone happy enough to like be a top tier confection. I don't know.
Well, no, it's just a different type of confection because that was the whole thing that she finds like the good people, I guess, have like delicious gummy insides or
It's a
sweet
separate,
insides.
yeah, I guess a
Yeah,
separate strain.
yeah. So like, it's not like Loggy Nine doing the oh you taste like delicious happiness and ecstasy, and we're gonna do it this way. Like she's going for the more subtle,
Okay.
earthy tones of oh this is just like a really good candy.
So it's
It's a
like
nice
going
sweet
to the
yeah
dispensary. It's like, do you want more of like a head high? Or you're looking for a body high. So they're asking like, you looking for like happy humans? You looking for like polite humans? What's your flavor that we're
yeah.
going for here? Got it.
Like you want to be like laying on the floor spinning in circles, head rush. You just want to be able to like sit back, kick back, and relax, and look
Yeah.
outside, enjoy some nature, pet a dog.
Which
That kind
human?
of vibe.
Yeah, which human do I eat where I then just like watch the yard and giggle a lot more than normal? Which one's that? I want those. Next up on our show, Toby, we have some awkwardness because, of course, I loved this part. Shoma kind of intercepts the grenade, realizes that she's a grenade. She runs off, and Shoma has this like he's staring after her in his like wide like I'm a common writer stance, like he's about to henshin, and then Sachiko sort of like breaks him out of it, like what are you doing? And he's like, oh, nothing. It's fine.
I mean, I guess that probably is like a weird instinct of okay, I know I'm supposed to be a superhero. My friend almost just got kidnapped. I need to protect her, but like I just yelled at this lady in front of my friend, and now if I go chase after this woman, this probably looks a little highly suspect for me. The nice little delicioso boy. I probably shouldn't do this kind of deal.
But Hanto's not worried about that at all because he shows up right afterwards, and basically he's like, Get her!"
To lecture Shoma again about his wishy washy. I don't know,
Yeah,
whatever the good word is for like your inner drive.
yeah. They're again, they're doing a good job here of like, Hanto is like stone cold convicted that all Granoots are bad. And of course, like Shoma knows that he isn't, so has a little bit of evidence to the contrary, but can't share that with Hanto. So they're continuing to sort of drive that wedge in between them here. I think, which is good. And of course, that happens even further in the kind of big finale of the episode here. So Shoma gets to do a little soul searching about like, man, I got to find the right time to tell Hanto, and I've been misleading him, and maybe I'm just being selfish for doing it. Um, but then we lead right into the end. So Shoma and Hanto try to take down the Granoot. They finally track down the bird Granoot, but they get interrupted by Lage 9. He kind of inserts himself and then reveals himself to be a common rider and does his big henshin. So we'll talk about him and his henshin here in a second. But yeah, the first thing that happens is Shoma says, like, oh, like he might be on our side or whatever. And Hanto's like, no, you idiot. Clearly he's not. He's a Granute. Didn't you see?
He just stood in front of the freaking monster, made us not hit him with like the finishing blow.
Yeah. So like again, the characters with differing knowledge thing plays out interestingly here because again, Shoma gets played like a fool even though he knows that he's a Granute and he's good. But he can't reveal that. And Hanto gets further proof that all Granutes are bad, even if they're common riders. Which is a cool overlapping of kind of the conflict they have going on. But yeah, the introduction of Log 9 here was awesome because they're about to do their big like double team takedown. They have cool kind of tag team moves now, Shoma and Hanto, and right as they're about to do their big hit finish, Log 9 walks in, and they have to like kind of swerve at the last second and sort of fire their their cannons and
Yeah,
stuff off him.
they pull up to
Yeah,
like attack the ceiling instead of straightforward.
which is very cool. And then yeah, we quickly get the henshin. So we get Common Rider, I think Vlam maybe is how we're gonna pronounce that.
So
Um,
I guess it's supposed to be like Flan,
that was
FLAN,
my thought. Yeah,
and
was that it
that's
was
what he looks like.
yeah.
So I'm just gonna call him Flan because that's easy to remember. His henshin is kind of disgusting,
It
and
is.
I don't know how I feel about his costume yet because it's not so much like the chest piece or the helmet per se, because the helmet's pretty slick. It's more so there's just like giant stacks of like flan pudding,
Yeah.
like popping off his knees and some other parts. It just looks like weirdly off putting to me. And I don't know why. It just seems not like a good like yeah, like his knee pads are giant flan desserts that like connect to his shins and just looks odd to me, I guess.
Yeah, his henshin is like, a cup comes over him and it fills up with like pudding and liquid.
It fills up with pee. It looks like it
It
fills up
looks
with
like pee.
pee.
Yeah. Yellow, a little bit too fluid of a pudding, but yeah, it looks like pee. And I for one am a massive fan of this costume. Like he yes, he has little like flans around his shoulders and stuff, but oh man, like as a unit taken as a whole, I can sort of abstract out the flan as like a design. Like I know what they are, but like you can also sort of just view it as like a cool look. Um and the same thing is true of his helmet, where like he literally has spoons on his ears. But again, that makes them really cool antenna. So like they do a really good job like serving two purposes. Where you look at someone like Valen, for example, and I can only see chocolate. Like I don't really see that that they're armor pieces as much. I still think Valen looks cool too, but like I think they do a better job at that with Gav and with uh Vlam now. Vlam. But yeah, I'm super, super into the whole look, and especially the helmet. I think the helmet is like the best part of it with the spoons and the very, very menacing eyeballs and stuff. I'm a huge fan.
I didn't realize it was spoons, so I will give him a bonus point for the spoons. But it's really just like the full-on armor and stuff. That is what's throwing me.
Yeah, I don't know what it might be partly the colors too. I think I just really like the like yellow and orange combination. But it's I don't know, it's rad. And we find out that while he's a common rider, he still has his crazy tentacle granute powers as well because he hits him with it kind of right off the bat. And really, I think overall, Vlam seems to be like really overpowered. He seems instantly much stronger than both Shoma and Hanto.
Well, like him at least going back to how like the fights have worked, him being able to take out Hanto, Valen, whatever, makes a little more sense because I guess he's still like a new rider and like getting he's not super powerful, he's just a human, not like Shoma kind of thing.
Mhm.
So that kind of makes a little more sense. But he still took out like one and a half common riders by himself. Like
Yeah,
no issue whatsoever. Just kind of beat their ass and was like, oh, you guys are chumps. Watch how easy this is, and just threw him around.
totally. And again, we end up saying it every week. I end up saying it every week, but the choreography and kind of like how the fights are designed in this show is so top notch. Like the first thing we see Vlam do is like he kind of kicks the sword down away from Hanto and like takes it away, and then he does this weird like slide on his knees thing, and then ends up sitting on Hanto's chest, and like it's just so cool. And then later he gets like smashed through the pillars because they're kind of in a parking garage, and all of it looks great. All of it's choreographed really, really well. And it head and shoulders above other stuff we've seen in Kamen Rider.
when
So
when he did the slide and sat on Valen's chest and hit him with the "you suck," that was truly when he endeared me to the world, and I was like, "Yeah, this whole guy's vibe is awesome." Because literally, like he knows he's better than everyone else, and all he really has to add to any of these people is, "Yeah, you're kind of garbage, man. Like whatever."
yeah, yeah. He literally is like it's a skill issue. I'm sorry. Some of his stuff, yeah, like the sliding, kind of like almost pinning Hanto, almost felt very like pro wrestling too. Some of his maneuvers.
I
So
was
yeah,
I was just excited because since like I'm pretty sure at some point because he keeps alluding to his dark secret, his no, I don't want dark confections, have this other plan going on. He reminds me of one of my favorite video game characters, Axel, aka Seth from Kingdom Hearts, who was a bad boy at first and became a fan favorite hero, Josh.
yeah,
And Axel had his great catchphrase of name's Axel, got it memorized. And Loggy 9, it just hits everyone with a you suck. And I feel like that's just as good, if not more effective, as a taunt.
yeah. I agree. I think it's a pretty good taunt. And that's episode 17. So let's jump over to some emails because we did get an email about some details
Right,
about
those hot
episode 17
deets.
here. Yeah. So the email, if our email address, Toby, is cast@commonwritersucks.com. If you want to send an email, you can. That's the email address. And our email this week comes in from our friend Shade. And Shade says, "Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Hope everyone is having a good beginning of the year. Now that Josh's 2012 YouTube Let's Play arc is over, let's get back to the cool stuff. LOL." I'm getting roasted. Getting roasted
Good.
in the email section, Toby.
Better you than me.
I mean, I'm just out here having fun, putting up
Better you than me.
putting up fun YouTube videos and just getting my shit pushed in. What are we doing? Um, Shade says we had some pretty big news during the year, so let's get to the producer's blog before we get to the big stuff. Uh, and then Happy New Year. Did you eat a lot of delicious food during the New Year holidays? In the name of tasting and materials, there are a lot of sweets. Uh, there are lots of sweets and meeting. I'm
You do
failing
it
to
again.
read here.
Do it again.
There are a lot of sweets at meetings and filming sites for Gav, and it seems that all the producers gained weight. This year, we will do our best to make Gav delicious. And then Shade shares some details about the name Vrom, which we were wondering about. The name Vrom and Vrostum gear, that must be the transformation belt.
God bless you.
Yep, come from the word frustrum. No, frustum. It is a cone-shaped container like a cup dessert for pudding. Oh, so he's not named after flan. He's named
He's named
after
after the container, not the
the
pudding
container.
itself.
Yeah, frustum. Yeah, the portion of a cone or pyramid which remains after its upper part has been cut off by the plane parallel to its base. We're getting mathy over here.
I don't know. So if you look, this is back to umami conversation. So if you think about the way that a flan looks,
Yep,
but you continued the sides up until they made a point instead of
I get
cutting
it.
it off at the flat, that's
Yeah,
the frustum. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So
I'm on
so he's
board.
named after the flan. I thought you
He's
meant the
he's.
cup that he comes in, but it's not true.
I think it's both. I think that flan is in the shape of a frustum, but I
Yeah,
think it's also the container that like pudding comes in.
that's just the cup.
So it's sort of like both. It's yeah, it's dual meaning.
2025's greatest mystery.
The naming idea came from Ishimori Productions' Shinichi Kaneko. He also gave us the idea for the name Granute. He is very knowledgeable and imaginative. Whenever a topic comes up during a script meeting, such as this kind of scene and this kind of form of the writer, Kaneko instantly tells us which writer and which scene it is. Amazing. I'm just
That's
saying.
from the way I read that statement. It sounds like he's like the you or me in a conversation where you just kind of sit back and you're just like you're listening to people talk for a while, and then you just want to make some sort of smart ass comment or a joke, and you're like, "Oh, looks like a freaking frustum. This is ridiculous." And they're like, "Ooh, that's a good one." Ooh.
But they're all Japanese, so they're like too nice to like,
They're very
you
polite
know.
and say this was oh good idea.
Oh, that
Politely
was
clap.
a good addition. A good addition. Yes. Yeah, I think that's what it is. He's sitting back and he's like, "His frustum looking ass." Like, that's great. um, the blog compared Lage 9 to Kirame Silver, which is the actor's previous role. We've talked about that in the past. So it's a cool shot where basically it's the debut photo when he was the Silver Ranger, and then sort of him posing in the same way in his Lage 9 costume. And the quote from the blog is, "Huh? Is this really the same person who was completely blinded by the brightness of his own costume during his first transformation?" Um, then they went on to talk about Vrom's suit actor, a toku. We've talked about a toku before on the show. If you don't remember, he was Gotchard and Tycoon. And apparently, Toku, the suit actor, is the suit actor for both Vrom and Lage Nine's monster form. So on set, he had to constantly change costumes for the transformation scene.
That sounds like fun, I guess.
Yeah, that's a lot of back and forth if you aren't shooting those, I guess, intelligently.
If you're getting double paychecks for that, then I would switch as many costumes as possible. But if they're just like, hey, you're the character here, then maybe it might not be as fun.
Do you think it works like wrestling, where you get the double payday if you dress if you're in two matches?
It should.
It
Like
should. I agree.
like if you're playing like Gav and Valen as an example, you
Yeah,
are two characters. That shouldn't just be like, hey, we hired you to work today. That should be like you are this character, you get paid to be this character, and you have two jobs in one thing.
I agree. I agree. Finally, the blog shows us the pudding recipe the production crew used for research. There's a picture of it. So, it's what I feel like. Them having to like make pudding to research how to make a pudding common writer reminds me of the stories where you'd hear like the Grand Theft Auto, not the Grand Theft Auto, the Gran Turismo team when they were making that video game would have to like go out and like measure like the tire width of a sports car and like they were like sampling engine sounds and all these insane things of like you probably don't need to go to that extent. You could just make a round tire and it'd be fine. It feels like that where it's like a little too far, but like I see that you wanted to do it, so it's fine.
I definitely think it's at least more fun in the sense of like there's like craft YouTubers that I watch where like we want to make sure we have like the right recipe or the right combination so this looks like the actual thing first and then we'll work from there. Oh, I did 5 different tests where this is like 25% vanilla, this one's 50, and this is the difference that they look like and things like that. So I am like kind of amused by them sitting there trying to make like 7 different flans and going like which one of these would translate the best onto camera and like
Oh,
working around that to make the costume and everything.
yeah, like, this one has the best color, I like this. This one holds together really well. This one just
This
looks like urine.
this red toasting at the top or whatever makes it red and special. Oh, this one looks extra flavorful and looks like there's a little extra dessert here. Yeah, this is the one to do.
That's awesome. Um, Shade says, "Now on to some announcements. First up, the hyper battle video for Kamen Rider Gav was announced recently. I'm not sure entirely what this is about, but the featured snack for the special is ramen snacks, aka the Kung Fu Ramen Gochizo.
Ooh, yeah.
Not actual ramen noodles, more like dried ramen crunch snacks. It's more popular in Asian countries."
If I
Uh,
feel like if ramen crunch snacks can be a good chizo, so can mochi. To bring that back around to that conversation earlier.
I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah, seconded. And then Shade says some information regarding the number one Sentai Gozyuger has been revealed. I won't be sharing any story details, but the head writer for the series is actually a familiar face that you guys might know. The head writer is Akiko Inoue. You guys might recognize her from Kamen Rider Gotchard. She wrote the Village arc, where Renge visits her grandmother and the death of Hopper 1. Some of our favorite moments in Gotchard,
That's at least
if
a
I
good
do say
one.
so. Yeah.
Because to go back to the joke, we were supposed to remember that very special episode where people got slimed or one of those weird random episodes.
Uh
And
huh.
I don't think we were, at least my takeaway was not the right part of that. I just remember the slimings.
Fair. Yeah. I gotta say, I can't even imagine the amount of pressure she's under right now. This is the first time she's ever been a head writer for a Toku series, and it's for the 50th anniversary. Not to mention the fact that her father, Toshiki Inoue, is a super infamous tokusatsu writer who allegedly saved Sentai from cancellation and helped shape the early 2000s era of Kamen Rider. Finally, we have the part of producer Shirakura answering questions. So Shade links the whole thing, but in the interview, he mentions some of Toei's previous attempts to expand globally, such as Power Rangers, and more recently, Volts V Legacy. I don't know what that is, but apparently it's a live action remake of Volts V made by the Philippines. Okay. And how films like Godzilla Minus One and Parasite showed that people are more comfortable watching unaltered foreign films nowadays, which proves to him that it's not impossible for Kamen Rider and Sentai to reach the global market. There's something he said that I don't particularly agree with, so I'll fully quote it here. So the quote is: "Over the past 50 years, there have been various internal and external factors that have shaped Sentai and Rider, like our cultural backgrounds and the contexts in which they were made. If we just put that on a platter and said, 'Here you go,' to the rest of the world, people won't know what to do with it. This isn't just a North American phenomenon. You can see this in Japan as well. Do you think the people who say they like Kamen Rider today have been keeping up with everything from the days of Rider number 1, Rider number 2, and V3? Not all of them, right? There are people who've just gotten into it and just know Gav or Gotchard. I don't think it's really fair to expect them to know Riders 1, 2, V3, or the whole history of Showa and Heisei Kamen Rider before they're allowed to talk about it. Ideally, everyone in the world should have an even playing field in terms of how they can enjoy and discuss these shows. That's the kind of environment that we need to create from the ground up, which will benefit not only Rider and Sentai, but any other IP we create. That being said, we can't ignore our history, of course. There's some good in how we approach things before now, and a crucial part of our globalization strategy is finding the right balance so that our shows can be enjoyed by people outside of Japan as well as within. We're working on figuring out how we can do that."
That does
Uh,
seem like a good idea because people like me are not going to be able to. I'll never go back. I can't go back. At least makes it easier for
except
people
for
like
all the
me
times
to
that we do
just.
go back. Yeah. Shade says, "I don't particularly agree with this because just knowing a few writers or two can easily lead to newer fans doing deep dives on the lore of the series to understand it better. I understand his wish to bring the entire historical context of Kamen Rider to the world, but one of the strengths of the franchise is the ability of each series to stand on its own, and I think they should have more faith in that." Yeah, I think I agree with Shade here. Like, you look at stuff, I guess it's kind of twofold. Like, I think that the average consumer of things like this. So nerds, right? Like you
Nerds.
when you look at nerds who would be interested in a Kamen Rider or in a Sentai, they are the type of people who are very willing. like let's use Star Wars for an example. Very willing to watch something and then go to Wikipedia and like do the deep dive on like what else has this character been in and what else should I read? What books should I read? What Disney specials should I watch because I really liked this character? Um and I think having a world like that to explore is actually like a selling point for media nowadays. And look at like the Marvel stuff too, where people are getting introduced to characters through the Marvel movies. Like I came into the Marvel movies having read comics my whole life, so I knew most of the characters, but most people don't. But it has also given people the reason to go read comics. Like there's so many people I know who've gotten deeper into like the Marvel lore because of the movies. So I think like presenting things, and I think Ryder and Sentai is a great introduction because as Shade says, like they stand each one stands alone. So if you want to just be a casual fan and watch this one series and never think about it outside of that, you totally can. But if it's interesting, it provides the opportunity for you to deep dive and like learn more and watch other shows and have this sort of grander vision of how it all ties together. Um, so I think that stuff is just sort of built in your audience, like the wanting to do that and like that happening over time is kind of natural. So I don't think they have to try hard on that. I think it's just sort of bring the shows over and people get interested.
Let us try hard or something.
Yeah, exactly. Shade goes on and says Shirakura then talks about an encounter he had with Ricardo Cruz. Ricardo Cruz is a Brazilian musician who's a big fan of Toku. He has a bunch of Toku covers on YouTube. And he told Shirakura, "Good luck with your number one Sentai." Of which he then responded, "How do you know about that? We just trademarked it yesterday." And that's it. Not as insightful as the last one, but the interview still had some cool stuff. I hope he does more of these in the future. It really clarifies a lot of confusion and is always a bit reassuring to see how serious they're taking these shows. All right, I'm off to see The Pirate Man on Boon Boomjer. Thanks very much for the email, Shade, as always. Even if you burned me hard on my Let's Play videos.
Got
All
played
right,
like a fool.
we did. And I think that wraps up our coverage of episode 17. Any other final thoughts on episode 17 or 16?
No, I think mainly just, again, I want Shoma and Hanto to squash this pending beef that no one knows about. It will be cool to see what the regrouping plan is from getting jacked up by the the Flan rider, and can't wait for next week to see what happens next.
Yeah, I'm so excited to find out more about him. Just give me a whole episode about him. Just like Shoma and Hanto can take a break. Just give me Laga 9 being cool for an episode. That's fine.
Now
Yeah,
I can
should
start
be.
waiting to see when we get more Laga 9 backstory of what he's trying to pull here. But until then, I'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I'm so curious to find that out. All right, Toby, where can the people find you on the internet?
On Twitter, it's Life of Tobes. On Blue Sky, it's Life of Tobes. On YouTube, it's Tobes Plays. And on Retro Achievements, it is Tobes Plays.
For me on Blue Sky, you can find me at meek.lol. And you can find the show on Blue Sky at commonwritersucks.com. Of course, send in those emails to the show, cast@commonwritersucks.com. And we have a Patreon. Please check out our Patreon, patreon.com/thecommentwriters. We put out a bunch of bonus content every single week. We just watched the Common Writer Gotchard Daybreak movie, um, which you can sign up and watch us watch that. And I think we're going to watch the Boon Booger movie next. So if you sign up, you'll be able to get that pretty soon. So check all that out. You also get access to our Discord where you can hang out and chat with us all week long. Nice little community we've built over there. And yeah, we hope you check it out. Patreon.com/the comment writers. So yeah, that's gonna do it for us. Check the links in the description for all the links and stuff like that. But we'll be back next time to talk about episode 18 of Gav Now. And we hope you join us back for that. But until then, have a great week, everybody. Peace.